Hello, my fellow readers. This is I, Dark Symphony 777, with another fan fiction review. As always, a link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on the bell for notifications, leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts of the story. And finally, this is my opinion. My opinion is not indicative in the world, so please respect that. Also, if you can, please make sure to read the story first, or stories in this case, as I would like you to actually read the stories, that. And also, please spread the word, because I would like my channel to grow, and I need help because I'm constantly at work. Yeah, I'm constantly at work. So, the stories I am reviewing are Shadowchasers Power Primordial, as well as Shadowchasers Soulscape. These are two stories written by Occam's Razor, formerly known as Cyber Commander. And the reason I wanted to review these two stories first, combined, despite the fact chronologically Soulscape is the fourth story, is both stories technically have a central character point in one specific character, and two, these stories are probably the worst of all of them, and it'd just be easier to talk about both of them instead of talking about them separately, because honestly, there's just not much to talk about with these two stories, Sorry, Occam, but aim the brakes. So, let's get started. Well, what's the plot of Power Primordial? That's the problem. It's not so much there isn't a plot, it's just the plot is mostly reused from the original Shadowchasers. Just replace a Cthulhu demon mob boss with an army of snakes. Yeah, this is one of those stories that reuses a lot. So, deal. Kind of an issue. Soulscape is at least different. It starts from a plot point specifically in Power Primordial, i.e. chapter 59, I believe it's called. Let me see. 59. 59, where a character by the name of Hebina, who is the kind of the main focal point of both these stories in terms of story. She's knocked out after she loses the final duel because she was cursed, and Jalal Stormbringer decides to try and help her. So he manages to get some guy to build a machine that actually has a machine that goes into the soul, and he's like, I'm gonna try and save her. There we go. That's pretty much the whole point of Soulscape. It's just, he wants to go save the snake because he feels sorry for her and goes into her soul to try and save her and cure her of this curse that causes people to have bells ringing in their head all the time. Yeah, this is one of those. That's another one of these stories. I wouldn't call Soulscape bad. I call it disappointing. I figured it's probably the biggest disappointment of the entire one. Power Primordial is bad. At least I wasn't disappointed in it like I was with Soulscape. Oh, two flavors. What about the character? Well, in Soulscape we have Jalal, which, fine. I like the story with Jalal because I think he's a character that needs to be explored upon. No, it's also ignore. Also, it's just nothing really. It's just not much to talk about. I mean, in Soulscape we find out he has a daughter. Okay. And that's really it. Like, we don't really even know much about Hebina, despite the fact Soulscape takes place inside of her Soulscape, which is like kind of her memory, but we don't know much about her. I guess that makes sense. What about Power Primordial? Here's the issue. It reuses the same characters from the first story as well. That didn't work. Now, it could have worked if the characters had character arcs. And there's the big... And that's honestly the big problem with Power Primordial, is I would have been okay with reusing the plot for the most part if there was an actual... Sorry, I actually just woke up not too long ago. if there was one, actual character arcs to these characters, and two, you see these characters still grow. That's the problem. They don't grow. They don't have a character arc. In my opinion, Power Primordial basically takes everything that was good about the original Shadowchasers, gets rid of it, keeps everything that was bad, i.e., all the dueling. Like it's fine. Some of them were. They use a lot of stuff in Power Primordial. Unlike the first story where everyone using like Morphing Jar and Pot of Avarice. They're still using Morphing Jar and Pot of Avarice, but now they're adding like Spellbook of the Pot where people draw 3 cards. And a lot of other draw cards, so at least it's different. But they use the same deck. Well, Yugioh uses the same deck, but then he switches to 6 Samurais with Skull. Gear still uses Ally Justice, but he doesn't really add anything new. We get some custom Flamville cards from Ember, and we don't really get anything new from Jinx. Like that's the big problem with Power Primordial. It's just in the original Shadowchasers, we had each of these 4 characters had a proper character arc. We had Jinx with her over-reliance on luck and it blowing up in her face, with her trying to go on a soul search to consider whether or not to keep the luck or not. Seiichiro as the mentor who's trying to help Ember grow into her role. We have Gears and his backstory with the worms and the Light of Ruin. And also we got Ember trying to get used to life as a Shadow Chaser as she's growing and confidence as a duelist and all that. With this story, the only one who has even a semblance of character is Ember, and that's because the bad guy's plans revolve around Na, because Na is a big role. It kind of has a bigger role in this story, but it's still kind of sidelined for the most part, despite the fact she's actually just incredibly important. It's weird. But we do have some moments where Ember and Na are talking, and we're kind of at least get to know her character at least a tiny bit more, and Ember kind of starts to feel sorry for her and kind of gets like a slight respect for the snack for at least standing up for belief. It's a weird, like, there's not much to go on, because this comes off as like the author wanting to tie up loose ends from the first story, but not introducing a new team. Because introducing a new team is what made Shadowchasers, the next 2 stories, actually work. Because in the next story, we're introduced to a new cast in Chicago, and then in Conspiracy, we're introduced to another new team in Boston. So we're introduced to each new story after that. We're introduced to a new cast and crew with different characters and character arcs, and it actually works in those cases like it worked in the original. It just didn't work because the author just reused too much without adding anything new to the team dynamic and the world building. Even the world building is kind of muted, which is like the best part of the original story with all this stuff. They don't add a lot of new stuff in this story, mainly because a lot of the backstories focus on the Orphidias, and that's fine. You know, that. It's still strangely, it's still just a lot of nothing, just reuses so much stuff. Grammar errors. There's a bunch of grammar errors across both stories, mainly in mixing up names. It is a common problem. Even in later stories, even in like Tournament of Shadows, the one I'm reading through right now, there's still grammar errors where it's mainly just them mixing up the names. It's so weird. It's so weird. And pacing, I mean, small victories. Pacing in Power Primordial is pretty good. The story still relies too heavily on dueling. Like, there's even chapters where it's just nothing but a duel. It's like, hey, how you doing? Duel. Okay. And that's just really it. There's just nothing to talk about across both these stories. It's even worse in Soulscape, where the story is way too short, and it's just a massive missed opportunity to not get to know Jalal and go more into the backstory of Hibini, and kind of fill in her gaps of her character, as well as filling in gaps of the Ophidia culture and stuff like that, and maybe answer some mysteries about why the shadows are ripped in out of their worlds onto Earth. Just a massive missed opportunity. But yeah, those are the little stories. There isn't going to be a lot to talk about. What would I recommend these? No, they're just Primordial just reuses too much stuff, and Soulscape, it's just so short. There's just nothing really. There's just no content really. Favorite part? In Primordial, I like Chapter 59, where spoilers, we at least got even a bit of character development from Hibini, because in that chapter, it's her last duel. She's pretty much forced to duel, despite the fact and then we find out she was actually contemplating suicide. She was cursed by what's called the Bells of Baphomet, which is the curse I mentioned earlier. And she's basically forced to duel, and all the Shadowchasers kind of realize what's going on, and they start feeling sorry for her, and they realized that what she's going through is completely horrible. And she even has some story, talks about what happened. Like, she wasn't ripped out of jail because, she was useful. No, she was ripped out of jail to get killed. Like, she was literally ripped out of jail by the ruler of the Ophidia, specifically to get killed, and the only reason she won is because the bad guy basically managed to tell her, it's like, hey, we got these darkskin cards, tell her about them. And, there's that. And they start to feel sorry for her. They realize that Hibini is being forced to duel, and then the duelist has to face off against Haman, who's actually controlling Hibini. And then it gets to a point where Hiba loses, and then they basically are willing to let her, give her amnesty and all that, and just give us your sword, give us your weapon, and we won't even we'll try and get you help. And then the bells come back. And as she's doing, she literally asks Ember to just basically kill her because she can't stand the bells, and Hiba even pulls out her sword. It's like, I'll let you give you a clean conscience. You can just say it's in self-defense. Everyone will believe you because it's an Ophidia attacking you. It's like, everyone believes that. But their guide manages to knock Hibini out with a special sleep curse, which leads into the events of Soulscape. So, with Soulscape, there's just nothing. Just nothing. Just sure. What would I change? Well, a lot, actually. Let's start with Primordial. I would change the team. Pretty much just introduce a new team. Just switch up the characters. Keep Ember, because Ember is kind of important to the story, so because of her connection to Hibini. So Ember, fine. Keep her there. Just give us a new team. Replace Gears, replace Jinx, replace Yugioh. Just send Ember somewhere, maybe a team member got sick or something, and they need someone to fill in for her, and Ember decided to come. Yeah, you just do that. That's really all you need. Or maybe the other 3 Shadowchasers are going on vacation, and they decided to just bring in members from other teams. You can honestly, you can think of something. And that's really it. You can for the most part, you can keep the story kind of the same. I just really think it would have been better if we're given a new team. That's it. With Soulscape is a more extensive fix. For one thing, the general outline of the story, that's fine. But one thing I would fix immediately, get rid of all the dueling except for the very last duel. Because I honestly think, because of how the story is structured, it would have made more sense for this story specifically to not have any dueling whatsoever, except at the end to kind of showcase Hibani's growth. First off, how long is this story? It's not, yeah, it's like almost 40,000 words. It needs to be much longer. Like, I say triple, maybe quadruple the length, because when Jalal first enters Hibani's Soulscape, we're introduced to her childhood, like a little Ophidia village that's supposed to represent her childhood. And each important character is supposed to represent a part of her subconscious, her actual her own conscious is basically a Hibani's version of Ember. That's the idea. Her idea of wanting to get Ember, or specifically to forgive her for everything she did, to the point her conscience literally turned into Ember, is actually really cool. Have that Ember kind of be a more main character instead of being a big character that just disappears after a tiny bit. Use the story to explore Hibani as a character. At the end, have her duel with what's called the Serpent Knights, which are basically a sort of a Ophidia group that wanted to spread goodwill and act as emissaries to show that, these snakes are really good. Because a big part of Hibani's character across these three stories is the simple fact that Hibani wanted to end prejudice against her species, because throughout the previous two stories, the original Shadowchasers and Power Primordial, especially, is her species were very prejudiced against because everyone only perceives them as doing more evil. But Hibani simply wanted to get her species some respect, at least, to get rid of that prejudice. And I think Soulscape you can easily see as a sort of story to kind of expand upon that, showcase all the prejudice. Like, I know I don't talk about politics a lot, but I think this story really should have laid on the politics. Showcase all the prejudice, all her guilt, have Jalal witness some of the stuff he sees of her species being prejudiced for even remotely doing something wrong, that the Shadowchasers completely start hunting them. You can go full, honestly, you can go full political with this story. Not have any duel except at the end, where Hibani shows that she's grown as a character, and so she wants to end the duel her way. And so she beats the curse and stuff like that. But another thing is, have Hibani not be captured yet. When we're in the story, Hibani, it's revealed that Hibani is captured and held into a castle. Maybe have Hibani hiding. You could easily go the whole fantasy route. Add a little crew. Jalal, Ember, Hibani. You go that little route with them going on an adventure to try and save her soul and cure the bells. And you meet a bunch of demons who are slowly corrupting everything. If you want to go that route, you could have Hibani kind of get a crush on Jalal. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it. It kind of fit with Hibani's character of just wanting acceptance and wanting her species prejudice to be gone. There's a lot you can work around with this specific story, especially if you want to go the political route. I think, for the most part, expand upon the little Hiba's Soulscape. Maybe add in some more characters, add in some more scenes, give her to all the dueling except for the last duel. I figured this is still a Yu-Gi-Oh story. If you're gonna end everything, end it on a duel. Maybe, these are just thoughts. This is just a thought experiment. Yeah. That's my review on Power Primordial and Soulscape. Sorry for keeping it short. There was just not a lot to talk about. Oh, yeah, there's that. Other than Dark Symphonies 777 and Cut.